Thank you, Carol, for coming in this morning. I have the pleasure of working with you through the Heart Failure Clinic here at South Denver Cardiology. And I want you to tell the audience a little bit about your experience of being diagnosed with heart failure and sort of your transition through the process to recovery. And I'd like you to start with when you fainted.
Sure. So I was at work early in the morning, like 8 o'clock in the morning. So I got in 7:30, 7 o'clock, and was talking to a coworker, and all of a sudden just passed out. And so they called the ambulance and all of that. And even as they were taking me away in the ambulance, and when they were talking to me, I actually lost vision. So when they were talking to me, I kept saying, "No, this is a migraine. I didn't eat this morning. I didn't have anything to eat. It's probably just a migraine. I'm fine." And the EMS came, and I'm telling them, "No, don't call the EMS. I'm completely fine." And the EMS came and took me to the hospital.
It sounds like you then had a workup, and you were sent home.
I was, because I kept telling them it was a migraine, and I convinced them at the hospital that it was just a migraine and promised to see my primary care physician. So I basically talked myself out of the hospial.
So a couple days go by and you're still feeling poorly.
Correct. And in the meantime, I did get a referral to a cardiologist, so I called in and gotten a referral here, which was nice because I'm feeling bad still. And I feel bad for several days, and I wait to come to the hospital. I wait till the morning because I don't want to inconvenience my husband.
And it sounds like you researched when was the best time to come into the
Yes,
ER.
I Googled, unfortunately I didn't Google, like, if you have heart conditions, you're supposed to go in right away.
Right.
I didn't Google that. I Googled when's the best time to go to the hospital. And
But you did end up waiting 4 days.
I waited 4 days. And I chalked it up to, I was getting older, I was tired from work, I have a lot of stress from work and family, and I just thought that's why I wasn't feeling well.
So you go in early morning.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
They immediately, bring me back, start running heart tests, and within a few hours, someone from here actually is in the hospital.
And they let you know about your ejection fraction.
Yeah, they say your ejection fraction is really low. You're in heart failure. It's at between 10 and 15%. And I should say that this whole time they're coming in and talking to me, and I'm really not absorbing anything that they're saying to me.
A lot of information.
Well, and my husband's there, and they would leave, and he'd say, "Gosh, what do you think about that?" And I'd say, "What do you mean? I need to get some medication and go home." And he'd say, "No, Carol, your heart is really bad condition." And I just couldn't absorb it. I couldn't take it in. And it wasn't until later that I realized that all this information was coming at me, and I wasn't able to even comprehend it. And it was which was upsetting to me later, because I never thought that I would be the type of person that wouldn't be able to comprehend what was happening to me.
But it is possible.
Yeah.
And someone as educated as you and astute as you, it's possible that you won't be able to, which is a good thing you had your husband there with you as your advocate.
Yeah. No, thank God.
Very thankful for that.
So they eventually said, "Hey, you're going to have to get a pacemaker defibrillator put in, and we won't let you leave the hospital until you have this device put in." And again, I didn't absorb that. It took a long time, a good couple hours, probably maybe 5 hours, and I had to wait overnight before they put it in. And
Which was a hard wait too.
It was horrible, and it was. I was scared. I didn't really understand the procedure, so I'm Googling the procedure in the hospital, which makes me more scared. There's different types of devices. What does that really mean? What does it mean in ICD? What does it mean? A defibrillator, is that the same thing? Is a pacemaker different than that? I mean,
Those are all important questions.
Right.
Most patients have those very same concerns.
Yeah, and so I kept thinking, well, I just couldn't believe it was happening to me. Because I'm going to have something in my body for the rest of my life. It was really hard to come to grips with that. But it was so fast. Like, it wasn't like I had time to debate it and consider
and not
it.
Everyone has that experience.
Yeah.
Some defibrillators are placed after 3 months. Yours was unique in that you needed it right away.
Yeah.
So then you get out of the hospital, and I first see you here in the Transitional Heart Failure Clinic. Tell me a little bit about your experience here in the clinic.
At first I was, I have to say, Heart Failure Clinic. I was like, oh, I hate
Just
this
the
name.
name. Just the name.
I hate this name of this, and I'm too young to be in a heart failure clinic. But it was really helpful for me to come in as often as I did. So you set it up so the first month, it was almost every week I came in, and it was helpful because I had a lot of questions and I was struggling with just dealing with it, having to slow down, take off time from work. So I had time to come do it. Get the medication titrated, which was really, for me, was the most difficult part. And then knowing that somebody was looking at the scar and looking to see that it was healing right, that meant a lot to me. And that every week, if I wasn't feeling good, still I could ask the questions, and we could change the medication as needed until I was feeling good. And then talk about all the other things that go along with heart failure, the eating, the, I can't have salt anymore. I mean, I was like such a salt addict that was shocking to me. And then meeting with a dietitian here, that was helpful. Setting me up with cardio rehab, which was also really helpful because it, more so than the working out, it was the having other people around that had a similar heart condition, and then knowing that, I mean, I knew intellectually I'm not the only person in the world, but it did feel a lot better to have other people to say, oh God, we hate those beta blockers, or whatever it is. So it was nice to be.
It was a gym that you could relate to people.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
And I wasn't embarrassed to go. Like I would have been, plus I was scared. I was really scared to work out. I had
the exercise physiologists there are right there. You're monitored, so it's a safe environment.
Exactly. Yeah. And it gave me a lot of comfort because I would have been scared to get on a treadmill before that because I just didn't know what my heart was going to do. Right. And I was scared of the defibrillator. I was scared of the defibrillator.
And most people are.
Until it's been a year and a half, almost 2 years now I've had it. And I want to say, except for the last 6 months, I've been scared of this defibrillator. I'm scared to walk by a microwave sometimes. I'm scared that I put my phone too close to it. And I understand, I've done all the research, it's not going to affect the defibrillator. But there's something in me that goes, or am I going to get a shock if I go through TSA at the airport, which I travel a lot for work. So I'm in the airport like 3 times a month, going through the security gate. And so that's another thing I've had to sort of.
It sounds like you've come to have some peace with that.
Yes, I have no problem with it whatsoever. I have no problem with just walking. I just go through, and I don't feel like I have to explain or show my card anymore.
So there's a big difference between the first month of the implant and a year out.
Yeah,
and you will get used to it. You will have less fear, and that's a big hurdle for a patient to get over.
Yeah, and that first month was really hard. I've not ever been someone who has depression issues. And that first month, I found myself that first 2 weeks even just crying uncontrollably.
And that's very normal. We screen for depression on your first visit here at the Transitional Heart Failure Clinic, and we do find a lot of depression. And we do find that it gets better when you exit the clinic.
Yeah, and it did. It was remarkably better. Yeah. That was difficult. I have a child at home.
And how was that with your family?
My family was great. My husband was great through it. But it was also hard for them to have somebody. I mean, I'm always the one that takes care of everything at home. I'm the mom. So I do all the meals. I do all the planning. And I had to get to. And I was so nervous about putting this on my child. Like, how is this going to affect her in high school, in school? And so you don't want to tell them too much. I mean, you have to, obviously they're living with you and they know what's going on, but I didn't want to share so many feelings with her. I didn't want to put my feelings out onto her. And so that was a balancing act that we had to, and it was definitely a balancing act with my husband as well. I mean, he felt very tender also. How was I doing? Calling home, 10 times a day. Are you okay? And then being annoyed that I'm being asked how am I 10 times a day, so we definitely worked it out, but it was certainly a.
And now fast forward, here you are, ejection fraction's 55%.
Yeah.
So that's a huge success. And is there any advice that you might have for other women, particularly women, when they do receive the diagnosis of heart failure? And I think on the topic of hope.
Yeah, it's really not it's just now a part of your life, but it's not. It doesn't define you. I think for women, I went through a period of, well, is my husband going to find me still attractive? I have this device in my chest, and it's personal, but and it isn't like that at all. But I certainly all those fears in the back of your head. You try to. I think as a woman, you have this. I need to be perfect. I need to be Superwoman. I need to be perfect at home, perfect at work, and then.
And heart failure isn't perfect.
Right. So I think, but a couple years later, and you just. It's like I'm a totally different person. In fact, actually, I feel better now than I had for previous years up into the heart failure. And I would say the one thing I did learn is not to ignore symptoms, because I ignored them for a very long time. Probably a year I ignored my symptoms and did nothing about them because I thought it was stress from work, stress from, I just chalked it up to getting older, and instead of saying, oh, well, wait, it's harder to get up the stairs. And it's, I feel like I want to go to bed at 6:30 at night. And why is that? And why am I, gaining all this weight? Which turns out later to be water, but I didn't add any of those things up.
Which is very common. That's why we see patients who have 30 pounds of water weight, and they're terribly short of breath. So it's a very common thing.
And I didn't have those symptoms like you think. When you think of heart, you think, oh, you're going to get this pain in your chest, and I didn't have that. I just had I did have some pain in my arm, which of course I don't even know what I marked that up to, but I had some pain in my arm, and I had I just definitely felt horrible.
Fatigue is very common.
And I did have
shortness of breath.
And I had this feeling of dread. Before I went to the hospital, one of the reasons I went to the hospital is I had this feeling of dread. And then I finally said, okay, I have to listen to that. And I think I mentioned to you earlier, at 3 o'clock in the morning before I went to the hospital, I was watching a Rosie O'Donnell special, and she was giving the symptoms, and I was thinking, oh, I have that symptom, and oh, I have that symptom too. And so that actually is what convinced me really to go to the hospital, because I probably would have just, and that's scary. I would have just stayed in bed, and I would have.
Who knows what would have happened?
Yeah. So.
Well, huge success.
Yeah.
Both for the clinic, having you with us and doing so well, and for you and your life and your family. So I appreciate you coming out today, and best of luck.
Oh, you're so welcome, Paula, and thank you for having me.
You bet.
All right.